Hello, Zalto Live listeners. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that more teachings from Zen monk Claude AnShin Thomas are available in his two books, At Hell's Gate, A Soldier's Journey from War to Peace, and Bringing Meditation to Life, 108 Teachings on the Path of Zen Practice. Both are available wherever books are sold, and all proceeds go to the Zalto Foundation, dedicated to promoting nonviolence, awareness, and positive change.
Hello and welcome to Zalto Live, the podcast featuring Zen Buddhist Monk Claude AnShin Thomas, who will share with you his life experiences that includes not only military combat, personal violence, and addiction, but also healing, transformation, and the ongoing joy of everyday life. Please enjoy listening.
I haven't had any questions mailed in. So we have an open session. Questions? Yes, Myo Zen.
What do you do when you notice that you got stuck in a certain pattern that feels uncomfortable, if you have such an experience?
Mostly it happens to me in my mind now. And I simply notice, I just notice that. I don't chase it away, because often I can't. And I don't really spend too much time with it. I find if it's really invasive, the thought, and I find something to do, something constructive. Yes. So if the thoughts are really, if they're really sort of problematic for me, then I practice another form of meditation. Yes, I work, or I write, or I exercise, or I have a dice on with someone. I speak to them about the thought patterns. Yes, there are, remember, meditation and daily life aren't two things. There are a multitude of forms that we can use to support us when we encounter such things. The conditioning always is to not want them. When I stopped not wanting to have these kind of patterns, they had less effect on me. Question? Yes, Kenshin?
There's a study where dying people were asked what they regret. The number one that was mentioned most often is the regret to not having lived one's own life. How do you relate to that, or how do you see that spiritually, living one's own life?
I think it's a pretty curious response, because we can only live our life. We can't live anyone else's. It's always our life. Question from the group. Keith.
I've gotten a couple emails recently from other groups that are celebrating Vesak again, and I'm just curious is there multiple Vesak days?
Yeah, some people celebrate it differently. Yes, when Kenshin returned to the U.S., when she was going through immigration, the immigration officer asked her if she was Buddhist, and Kenshin replied yes. Then he talked about a big Vesak celebration in Atlanta, around the same time that we celebrated Vesak here in Europe. But there's like anything. There's sort of discussions about what is the real date. It doesn't really matter. It's like the alleged patriarch of Zen practice is Bodhidharma. There's no real proof that he actually existed. There's some hints at it, but predominantly it's the existence of Bodhidharma is attributed to the person or to the three people who are alleged to have been empowered by him. So who knows? From my side, it's not that important, but there are different dates. Question from the group. Keith.
My question is, has any of the protests affected your movement or anything you're doing?
No, not yet. I think these protests were predominantly in the area of Leipzig. I think Leipzig, someone will correct me, I think Leipzig is in the former East. Yes, and I don't know if my travels take me out in that direction right now. What does encroach upon my travel sometimes is all of the holidays they have here in Germany, and everyone rushing to go on vacation, and all of the construction on the Autobahn. They're perpetually under construction. These are just expected. Yeah, so no protest, nothing no protest in this direction yet. And I haven't encountered any of the climate extinction people either. Question from the group. Yes, Myo Zen.
At the moment when you travel quickly from one place to the next, how long does it take you to arrive there with your whole being? Or is it that after a while you haven't arrived really at all the places? I don't know really how to say it.
Yeah, whenever I arrive, I'm here. Yes, there's no problem with that. Only in the very beginning, it takes my body a period to adjust to the time. But my adjustment this year was pretty quick compared to some years in the past. In fact, I arrived in Spangenberg yesterday, and this morning I made an offer to buy a castle. Yeah, it's only 20-30 million. Yeah, so I thought to do a GoFundMe page. No, really, I'm here. Really, I'm at home every place, because every place is home. If every place is not home, then I'm caught in the world of dualities, and I'm attached to some idea of home. And then working with the whole notion of attachment. Question from the group. Yes, Gabi.
How do you work with the ant street passing through your kitchen in relationship to the precept of not killing?
I'm just relocate the food. I just let them pass through, because at a certain point they stop. Yes, on one occasion, Kenshin and I were traveling for a long period. We came back to the center. There's these little tiny ants. They're called sugar ants. And they got up into one of the cupboards. They got into some baking things, and they made a really nice little nest in there. We cleaned it, just relocated them. In most of the places where I've lived, there's a certain time of year, the ants are on the move. We're not bothered by them so much now in Mary Esther, because there's nothing to really invite them. But I just clear the area. But in the end, how you deal with the ants is up to you. Please just don't step on them. Smash them with books. Question from the group. Yes, KG. Nice to have you back, KG. It's good to see you.
Anshin, what are you able to share with us about the topic of failure?
From my side, there is no failing. This whole failure is an idea. Some things I'm not able to do, maybe the first or second time, but I make the effort. And if I'm not able to do it independently, then I ask for help. But really, I just don't see the term failing. Like I don't see the term succeeding. There are two sides of the same experience. If I look at the world in terms of success and failure, then I have not yet penetrated the world of dualities. I haven't yet understood that both are essentially empty. Question from the group. Yes, Myo Zen.
If you listen to a number of stories of suffering that people share with you on the same day, so you have one person after the next, what do you do to not carry the sad stories with you around?
It's not a problem. They're their stories, not mine. It's very similar to KG's question. The world of dualities. Their stories are their stories. They're not my stories. However, what about their stories can I connect with? What insight does that give me into my person? There's nothing I can do about another's suffering. I can only point in a direction. It's just simple. If someone doesn't want to be helped, there's absolutely nothing I can do. Everything I suggest will not be correct. If a person is interested in changing or wants some support, then everything I say will be okay. Has little to do with me. But when I'm engaged with the other, it's always a question, where do I connect? Keeping in mind that their suffering is theirs. Question from the group. Yes, Gabi.
So in referring back to KG's question, if everything is an idea, what is then there? What is there tangible, or is there anything?
All things are tangible. Yes. Remember, there are two coexisting realms. There is the realm of the relative and there's the realm of the absolute. They are not one thing, nor are they two things. They're interrelated. So in the world of the relative, there is right, wrong, good, bad, yes, no. It's very similar to the story I tell about Fayan and his students. Behind me, this is a wall. Yes, to imagine it's also not a wall. See, that's when I move into the realm of the absolute. The wall seems hard, and it is hard, but it's also not hard. We have the capacity to see more deeply into this wall. It's in constant motion. We perceive the moon rising and setting. We perceive the sun rising and setting, but they're not moving. We're moving. So it's just about this trapped in a world of perception. We get lost in these fixed concepts: peace, war, success, failure, soft. Or they are two sides of this. They're two manifestations of the same reality. That we're always looking for a place. Somehow, the species is conditioned to find a fixed point, rather than it's just such a challenge for people to accept the reality that while there is a fixed point, there is no fixed point. If you try to think about this, you will burn your brain. How does a kitten know how to nurse? They don't think about it. How does the mother cat know how to care for its kittens? Doesn't read any books on parenting, just takes care of its kittens. And at a certain point, question from the group. Yes, KG.
In order to understand those two realms, can science and intellect be helpful with that, also be helpful with that? Or in general, they are rather an obstacle?
First, they are not two. They're not one, but they're not two. Yes. So immediately when I want to, the mind wants to establish a relation with things, a rational relation with things, so that it can grasp onto something, instead of just allowing things to be. The whole fabric of our existence, but let's say our existence, is built on the fabric of suffering. And the suffering is the product of attempting to get the world to conform to my ideas of it. Science has its limits. You said science and something else.
Intellect.
Yes, science and intellect have their limits. They are useful in the process, but they do have their limits. Just now they've been doing studies for some time in the United States at the University of Minnesota, where they take people like myself, Buddhist monks, that they wire us up with all kinds of electrodes and things, and they want to measure all of our body sensations while we're sitting. But what they discover is what we know. The science gives some credibility to what we know. Maybe it gives people, and maybe it gives some people enough courage to be willing to just fall right through themselves, to let go of all of their ideas of things without abandoning them. Question from the group. Gabi.
Is this something you're currently engaged in such a study?
No, not me personally, but people, other monks. Question from the group. Would be interesting though. Yes, just a moment, Keith. What I have done though is when they test my heart, EKG, is I watch the numbers, and I learn how to slow the numbers down or speed them up. So I have the capacity to be able to do that some time ago. But it's just a trick. Not really about waking up. Go ahead, Keith.
My question is, how do you explain expanded consciousness, or the concept of, with LSD?
There is only consciousness. It doesn't need to be expanded. It just needs to be, I just need to become conscious of what, I need to become aware of what prevents me from being conscious. Hallucinogenic drugs only introduce a psychotic experience. It might be, some of those experiences may be a little less psychotic than the others, but they're chemically induced. I met with a person who is responsible for a very big, a very large investment fund. There's a for-profit and a non-profit side. and they're funding a couple of organizations research with this stuff, in this field. And they asked me if I would. The person asked me if I would be willing to meet with some of these researchers, just to talk with them. I said, of course, I'm quite willing to meet with them as long as they understand my position. There are no shortcuts to awakening. Questions? Yes, Keith.
I have a question for Kenshin, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm wondering how your return to the United States has been, Kenshin.
Well, Anshin already told the story about immigration, which I really enjoyed. Coming back has been extremely busy. There's just certain things that need to be addressed here, also repair-wise. But I've been extremely happy to be reunited with the cats. And the house sitter is still here, which has been a nice, helpful transition. So overall, I'm just really glad to be back. Thank you.
Now, I want to talk about something just shortly around this topic that KG and Gabi have touched on. So in the mid to late 70s, I lived in Iran. And I went several times to a Sufi, just to visit a Sufi community. And they would do their dancing, the dervish communities. And then I would observe. Then I watched some things that appeared to be quite unreal. Yes, there was a huge rock, almost as big as this room. And after such a period of dancing and prayers, it appeared like one of these dervishes picked up this rock with 2 fingers. I watched it another time when they took a sword, and it appeared to put it through its body. No marks, no blood, nothing. What's true? I have no idea. I have no idea what I witnessed, whether it was true or an illusion. It doesn't matter. Because in the end, these things are just tricks. It has nothing to do with waking up. Can I learn to live at peace with my own peacefulness? I think we all have that capacity. Unless there's some serious organic damage to the brain.
Thank you for listening to this episode on Zalto Live. If you would like additional information, please look at the show notes or visit zalto.org. That's ZALTHO.org. Our work is made possible solely through donations, so please consider making a tax-deductible gift on our website. We wish you well and thank you.